Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Double T in the Morning podcast. And before I start, I just want to let you know about something that's not a sponsor, but it's called Odds Fire. It's a subset of Numbers Fire, which is a subset of FanDuel. It helps you look at betting lines, see where people are putting their money on, and look at where the bets are coming from. It helps in seeing where most people have their faith in, and it helps you make good, smart betting decisions. Uh, Gambling rules only apply in New Jersey, West Virginia, and a couple other states. So if you're not in those states, move to those states so we could all bet together. But before, without further ado, let's get going with the 15 transactions of the week. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Double T in the Morning podcast with your host, Double T in the Morning, which is me, Tyler. I'm not going to say my last name, but someone will probably dox me and figure it out anyway. So, welcome back. And I hope everyone had a good week 8. I know I didn't. I know that I was the number 1 scoring player, number 2 scoring player. And guess who I played the number 1 scoring player? And stuff like that in fantasy football, you just got to roll with the punches. But that's what we're doing over here. We're just rolling with the punches, and we're trying to use our brains to get the best information we can get. So without further ado, let's get into our first transaction. So my first transaction of the week is to buy Le'Veon Bell. Buy or hold Le'Veon Bell if you already have him. It's been a rough year for Le'Veon Bell. The whole Adam Gase thing, and now all the swirling surrounding him and Jamal Adams is getting out of hand. And the one guy that's surprisingly not making any noise is our boy Le'Veon Bell. Now, he started off the season pretty decent. I'm going to say he had a pretty good beginning of the season, 23 points, 20 points. Looked like he was going to have a great pick. Last 3 weeks, he scored 12, 8, and 6. But not to worry, Le'Veon Bell owners, because his matchups coming up are Miami, New York, Washington, Oakland, Cincinnati, Miami. And they've already had their bye week, too. So for the rest of the season, I'm going to see that they start getting some more positive game scripts, and they start running the ball down the clock. These positive game scripts. So definitely, I'm going to give you one of my best pieces of advice in buying Le'Veon Bell. So my next piece of advice is probably my most important, which is to sell Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake got thrown into that Arizona role at maybe one of the worst times ever. And it's going to be a rough outing for Kenyon Drake. So Kenyon Drake's next 3 matchups are against San Francisco, who's second against the run, Tampa Bay, who's third against the run, and then San Francisco again, who's second against the run. Then a bye week. At that point, Chase Edmonds or David Johnson is probably going to be back at that point, giving you, yes, volume in those first 3 weeks with Kenyon Drake, but volume's not going to exactly equal production against 3 of arguably one of the best defenses. So if you can, while people are high on him, I would definitely sell Kenyon Drake. The next piece of advice is to pick up Pittsburgh's defense. It might not be available in most leagues, but they have amazing matchups down the stretch. And if you're looking for a playoff run, it's Buffalo and the Jets. That's week 15 and 16. So if you're definitely making the playoffs and you're definitely looking to gear yourself toward the playoffs at this point, Pittsburgh's defense is either a must-buy low or at least pick them up. They're going to be really, really beneficial down the stretch when Pittsburgh might also be looking for a playoff spot at that point. So yeah, definitely pick up the Pittsburgh Steelers defense or buy them super low. My next transaction is to add Danny Amendola. Look, the Lions' offense right now is just an absolute mess. A couple weeks ago, I told you to pick on Matt Stafford, which, hey, was a total win on my part. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Danny Amendola. So Danny Amendola has been seeing a huge share load in that Lions offense. He's at 18 and 17 in his last 2 games, and they're going against Oakland, who's one of the worst defenses against the pass. At this point, If you're in need of a wide receiver, Danny Amendola could be a good slot player for either a flex or a second flex spot. So pick up Danny Amendola. The next transaction of the week is to sell Tyler Boyd. It's not that Tyler Boyd is the problem, it's that Andy Dalton is the problem. He's not even starting next week for the Bengals. And listen, I like Tyler Boyd. I think he's one of the best receivers on that team. I think he might even be a step up from AJ Green coming back from this injury. But his quarterback does not throw to him. And that's a big problem for Tyler Boyd. He looks good on paper, but I just don't trust that Cincinnati offense going down the line. So if you can, and you're lower, I would say to get rid of Tyler Boyd for a movable piece that you could pick up this week. Sixth transaction is to buy Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr., what do we have to say about him? He's in the high-powered Browns offense where Nick Chubb and that team is just steamrolling teams with their offensive power, right? Wrong. Odell Beckham started off really, really strong, and he's really gone down to a Mike Williams type player where you don't even know if you can count on him every week. But listen, the next two matchups are really tough for the Browns. Then it kind of eases up, and it's all middle of the pack pass defenses. And we could see them start pushing for a playoff spot at this point. That division is pretty wide open with the Ravens and the Steelers not as good as people thought they were going to be this year. So if the Browns really want to make some noise, they should start incorporating Odell Beckham, which I think they will be. A couple slant routes here and there, and he turns up the field. He's got great acceleration, so definitely see if you can get your hands on Odell Beckham. My next transaction of the week is something that's going to hurt me to say, but it's to pick up Derek Carr. Listen, the Lions' defensive line has been horrendous. They're not getting to the quarterback. They are not putting pressure on the quarterback. And we're in Oakland, back in Oakland, where the Raiders are looking to play a really nice game and put up a fight against their home crowd. And Oakland's pass defense has been really, really well. They got some guys doing screen passes that'll just turn up the field, and that's a 70-yard touchdown. With Tyrell Williams there and Darren Waller there, and if the run game starts working, we could see a really, really positive game script for Derek Carr and the Raiders. So definitely, it hurts me to say, but Derek Carr is definitely a good pickup this week as a streamer. My eighth transaction of the week is going to be a tough one, but try to buy Tevin Coleman. Coleman's coming off a monster week with 4 touchdowns. So anyone who sold him, I'm sorry. I know someone who sold him who's probably listening to this right now. And please don't take it to heart. I'm sorry about that. But Breida's not playing. He hasn't practiced, and they have a game Thursday. Tevin Coleman is going to get a monster workload, and Raheem Mostert did not practice yet this week. Tevin Coleman is geared up for a huge workload against Arizona. Expect him to have a monster game this Thursday. So buy Tevin Coleman. So my next transaction of the week is to pick up Jalen Samuels. He said it, week 9, he's ready to go, back from his injury. And we have no idea what is going on with James Conner. He's been having injuries left and right, and he hasn't really looked 100% all year. They might sit him this game just to get him back to full health. And if they do that, Jalen Samuels geared up for a huge role because the third thing, I think his name is Smell or Snell, doesn't look like he's going to be playing either. So Jalen Samuels could be an RB2 to max low RB1 this week. So if you can, definitely pick up Jalen Samuels. He's available in 72% of Yahoo leagues and 89% of ESPN leagues. So definitely give it a shot, put in a waiver for Jalen Samuels. My 10th transaction of the week is to add Mark Walton. At this point, we are just looking for serviceable running backs with all the injuries and everything else going around the league. And with Mark Walton out touching Kalen Ballage 14-4, I'd say give it a chance. He's owned in 34% of all the Yahoo leagues. Granted, also, he is not getting a huge amount of catches, but volume equals productivity in fantasy football. So we're definitely just looking for those touches. He's owned in almost 83% of ESPN leagues. So give it a shot and put in a claim for Mark Walton. My 11th transaction is 2 tight ends you consider picking up. It's Dallas Goedert and Darren Fells. Ertz seems to be taking a back seat to Goddard, which is quite chilling when you think about in the first week of the season, we were talking about George Kittle, Zach Ertz, and Travis Kelce being among the big three, and now everything is flipped on its side with people like Darren Waller and Dallas Goedert and all these other tight ends being thrown into the mix. The only one that's really substantial is Travis Kelce and George Kittle at this point. Ertz has fallen off, and I wouldn't even know if you would want to start him. So I'm definitely considering Dallas Goedert to be picked up. He's owned in 80% of Yahoo leagues, while Darren Fells is owned in 89% of ESPN leagues, and he is position ranked 8th among tight ends. And he's putting up serviceable numbers, so if you need a tight end, I'd definitely take a chance on either Dallas Goedert being 1 and then Darren Fells being 2 on my list. The next transaction is to hold or buy David Montgomery. The Bears should have won that game despite from the legendary Eddie Pinheiro. And David Montgomery was running the ball really, really well. He passed 100 yards easily. And people are still kind of looking down on David Montgomery and that whole Bears offense. I think Matt Nagy finally got in his head that he needs to run the football to actually win games. And with David Montgomery playing really well in that last game, I think they're going to turn to the run game a lot more often. And they're really shying away, honestly, from Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen's passing the ball while Montgomery's getting most of the touches, and it seems to be working out for Montgomery really well. So definitely give it a shot. And if you want to, buy David Montgomery. I think it's a really good opportunity to get a really nice running back for a cheaper price. My next transaction is to sell Julian Edelman if you're in a pinch. So Edelman's been an absolute beast on the football field. He's had 9 receptions, 7 receptions, 8 receptions in his last 3 games. Tom Brady loves throwing the football to this guy. But if your team's in a pinch and you need to make the playoffs, I'm deciding to sell Julian Edelman based on his previous 4 games. 25, 20, 13, 27. He's the top 10 wide receiver. You're going to get huge value for him. And if you need running backs, you could probably sell him for, I'd say like a RB2 and like a wide receiver 2 or like a tight end 1 if you really needed help that much. So definitely only if you're in a pinch, and I was in a pinch because I want to help those people out who are at the bottom. If you need help, I'm deciding to sell Julian Edelman, but for a high price tag. I'm also giving you this advice because I think his schedule gets a little bit more tough, and I think that game scripts for the Patriots are going to get a little bit more tough. They're going to have to spread the ball out a little bit, especially with Mohamed Sanu return going to the Patriots in this last week. So definitely, if you're in a pinch, I could see a little bit of negative regression for Julian Edelman. My next piece of advice is to buy either Curtis Samuel or DJ Moore. 2 Panthers wide receivers that I think are really going to have really nice stretches of games down to the end of the season. We got Tennessee, where they're both projected to play pretty bad. The Titans' defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL. I think they're a really good run-stopping defense, and they really defend the pass really well. But down the stretch, they have Atlanta, New Orleans, Washington, Atlanta, Seattle, Indianapolis. So a couple really easy games coming down the stretch. And I really think that those 2 wide receivers can really get a lot of work in that offense, especially if Cam Newton comes back even better than ever. I definitely want to have a stake in that Panthers passing offense. So definitely try to buy one of the Panthers wide receivers.
My last transaction of the week, and just kind of overall advice for the next couple of weeks, is to pick up Boston Scott and any other serviceable running back off the waiver wire, including Trey Carson. Trey Carson's the 3rd string running back, or at least the starter on Detroit for now, and Boston Scott's the 3rd string on the Eagles. The reason I'm saying to pick up Boston Scott is that Miles Sanders left the game early with an upper body injury. He seems to be all right to play this Sunday, but if he doesn't, that means that Jordan Howard's had only 4 catches out of the backfield over his last 4 games, and with Miles Sanders getting 13, those receiving yards might go to Boston Scott. And with him rostered in only 0.1% of league, meaning he's available in 99.9% of leagues, if you have a deep bench, take a chance on this guy. You might be happy with the production you get. So remember the name Boston Scott for the upcoming next couple of weeks. And that's it. That's my 15 transactions. Overall advice for the next couple of weeks is that we're going to have down weeks. Listen, I started off 6-0 in one of my leagues, and it looks like I'm going to be on a 3-game losing streak at this point. With almost all of my starters being out this week 9 has been a killer for me. But let's always remember that there are 5 weeks left of fantasy football. If you're in that mid to low tier, you can still put together a good roster and make it run at the playoffs, especially if your man has an 8-team playoff. Only 4 guys out of a 12-team league are getting cut, and you could be one of those guys. And once the playoffs is open, anything can happen. So keep your head up, and good luck in week 9.